Oddly enough, almost every horror movie is built around the same core idea. The antagonist, the driving force behind the story, is almost always a demon, the child of a demon, the father of demons, or judging by the direction modern cinema is heading, we will probably get demon boyfriends next. Almost every one of these evil entities possesses supernatural powers and abilities, and that got me thinking, no one has ever tried to rank them by strength. Could Bughul from Sinister defeat Freddy Krueger if they somehow ended up facing each other in some fictional multiverse, the kind that has become so popular in movies today? But before we can answer that, we first need to understand what each monster and demon is actually capable of. We need to uncover the history of the lipstick face demon from Insidious, find out what the mysterious entity living inside the mirrors really is, and discover why the seventh daughter and the supreme witch from the autopsy of Jane Doe are truly immortal. We are also going to confirm or debunk the rumor that she is the daughter of Valak from the Conjuring. Why did Jeepers Creepers leave the planet Venus, and what happened to his twin brother? Why is the demon Toby from Paranormal Activity nothing more than a hostage in a witch's bargain? I want to answer many of the questions that always come up when watching these movies. If horror films fully explained the history of every supernatural entity, the mystery would disappear, and that fear of the unknown would no longer have the same power to terrify the audience. That is why most of them keep their secrets hidden. It is time to change that. My name is Evgeny, and today we are counting down the most powerful supernatural entities in movie history. By the end of this video, we will choose the top 3, but first, let us get to know each of them and uncover the history and weaknesses of these demons. You get the idea. I promise this is going to be interesting. Let's get started. The first entry on our list is the demon Valak from the Conjuring series and the Nun. This entity is described in detail in the demonology grimoire, The Lesser Key of Solomon. However, the movies introduce several important differences. So what do we actually know? According to the book, there are 72 demons in total, and Valak is considered the most powerful among them. Another demon from the same grimoire appears in Annabelle. His name is Malphas, and he is the entity that controls the doll. He is also mentioned in The Lesser Key of Solomon and in Herzog's book. There, he appears as a wingless raven. In The Lesser Key of Solomon, Valak is depicted as a young boy with wings riding a two-headed dragon. In the films, however, the demon's original form is a gargoyle. That is why, when Lorraine drives Valak out of our world, we can briefly see the silhouette of a gargoyle. Herzog's book also describes a young boy with a snake emerging from his mouth. In the second film, Valak takes the form of the Crooked Man, showing that the demon can assume any appearance necessary to terrify its victim. The demon is capable of manipulating the souls of the dead and possessing the bodies of the living. It uses a snake for this ritual, which, as described in the book and shown in the film, emerges from the demon's mouth, repeating the eternal cycle of the Ouroboros. Although the original symbol is a single serpent devouring its own tail, Valak is represented by two serpents consuming each other. That difference is not important, because the symbol still carries the same meaning of death and rebirth. Even in the original grimoire, it is depicted as the symbol of infinity. Valak is extraordinarily powerful. Its very presence is capable of poisoning the land, even from a great distance, as shown in the Nun, where the nearby village was affected. The soil became lifeless, and all the vegetation slowly rotted away. And this happened despite the fact that wooden crosses had been placed all around the abbey's perimeter, while the nuns maintained an unbroken chain of prayer for years. Even that was not enough to stop the demon. For comparison, the Warrens invited a priest every month to perform prayers and bless the room where the Annabelle doll was kept. And that alone was enough to keep the evil contained. But even Valak's power and influence could only be restrained through continuous prayer. And even that barely helped. The demon cannot enter our world of its own will. It can only be summoned. And that is exactly what the Duke did. He sacrificed 5 people and, using dark rituals, managed to open a gateway to the supernatural realm. But the Crusaders sealed the portal using the blood of Christ. Even that, however, was not enough. If you think Lorraine, the world's most powerful medium, destroyed the evil once and for all, that is not what really happened. Valak is immortal. Lorraine only managed to send him back to hell. In my opinion, Valak is one of the most powerful demons ever portrayed in cinema. What we saw on screen was only a small fraction of what he was capable of, because he was never given the chance to fully regain his strength in our world. Valak mocks religion and the church, takes the form of a nun, desecrates a sacred community, can manipulate the weather, twist people's minds, and those glowing yellow eyes stay with you long after the movie ends. But Valak is not the only yellow-eyed entity on our list. Pennywise the clown also has glowing yellow eyes. Do you think that is just a coincidence? Well, let us take a closer look at IT. This antagonist was created by Stephen King, and his novel contains more than enough information to understand the true power of this visitor from another world. First of all, this is the oldest creature ever featured in a horror movie. It is more than 1 million years old. It came into existence in the void that surrounds and contains the universe, a place known as the Macroverse. Millions of years ago, it arrived on Earth inside a meteor after a collision with an asteroid. It settled beneath the ground, where the town of Derry would one day be built. The creature remained dormant for countless years and finally awakened after Native American tribes began living in the area. The tribes realized they had no chance against such a powerful being and ultimately decided to abandon the cursed land. The most fascinating and mysterious part of its story is its hunting cycle. Every 27 years, IT awakens and begins hunting for an entire year before returning to hibernation once again. This cycle repeats every 27 years. IT feeds on human flesh and fear, but over time it realized that children are the easiest to frighten and deceive. That is why it chose the form of a clown. This appearance allowed it to lure children in, but simply eating them was never the real goal. Fear was what truly mattered. In its own words, a victim tastes much better when they are completely consumed by terror. In the novel, IT claims that its real name is Robert Bob Gray, while the nickname Eat is the name given to the creature by the Losers Club. But there are two details that are difficult to understand if you have only seen the movies. First, because of Pennywise's appearance, the creature is perceived as male throughout the story. In reality, however, IT is female. In the novel, there is even a scene revealing that the creature lays eggs. You might also think that It's original form is a giant spider, but that is not actually the case. The creature first took on the shape of a spider after awakening from its long hibernation, because the first living creature it saw on Earth was a spider. Its true form is a swirling mass of orange lights known as the deadlights. Anyone who looks directly into the deadlights either goes insane or dies. Only on rare occasions, if a person possesses extraordinary willpower and is able to completely master their fear, can they survive. The movies never make Pennywise's true purpose entirely clear, but once you read the novel, it becomes obvious that IT is deeply confused. It does not truly know who it is or why it came to this planet. It sees itself as a higher life form and considers humans nothing more than toys and food. At times, it even feels as though the creature is lonely, which is why it enjoys playing with its victims. And that is Pennywise's greatest weakness. It does not understand its own past or its true purpose, and in the end, it allows the Losers Club to shape the way it sees itself. That is ultimately what gives them the chance to destroy the monster. The original novel contains one highly controversial scene that the filmmakers chose to leave out of the adaptation entirely. After the Losers Club defeats Pennywise for the first time, they become lost in the tunnels beneath Derry, and Beverly tries to bring the group back together in a very controversial way. The scene sparked years of debate among readers, so the filmmakers ultimately decided not to include it in the movie. Now let us move on to the next monster, the woman known as Jane Doe. The Supreme Witch's real name is unknown, but in the autopsy of Jane Doe, that is the nickname she is given. The coroners, Austin and Tommy Tilden, use that name because the victim's identity is unknown to the investigation. The two screenwriters, Ian Goldberg and Richard Neng, had very different ideas about the young woman's backstory, which is why the film never reveals the witch's true history. Ian Goldberg originally planned for the movie to open with her birth. She was meant to be the seventh child in her family. In ancient folklore, it was believed that if a family had 7 daughters in a row, the seventh child would become a witch. That birth scene was supposed to be the very beginning of the film. In Goldberg's version, the mother desperately prays to God for the baby to be a boy. The second screenwriter, Richard Nang, did not like that idea because he had his own vision of how the story should begin. In his version, the opening scene shows a large family gathered around the dinner table. A mother, a father, and their 7 daughters. But the peaceful evening is interrupted by a knock at the door. The Grand Inquisitor enters, carrying an indictment from the church court. The document accuses the 7th daughter of practicing witchcraft, and the Inquisitors take the young woman away. Both of those opening scenes were eventually abandoned because the filmmakers decided it would be far more intriguing if the audience did not know who Jane Doe really was from the very beginning. But thanks to those early story concepts, it becomes clear that she was the 7th daughter in her family and was not originally an evil entity. As she appears in the film, everything changed because of what the church did to her. The young woman was tortured and abused. She was kept bound the entire time. Her arms and legs were broken and her tongue was cut out. Later, they tried to execute her. She was drowned, hanged, and burned at the stake, but the Inquisition failed to kill her. She survived all 3 church executions. By the way, there is a reason those particular methods of execution were used. At the time, they were believed to comply with one of the 10 commandments, "Thou shalt not kill." It was thought that taking a person's life without shedding their blood did not violate that commandment. That is why people were hanged, drowned, or burned at the stake. No blood was spilled. No one knows exactly when Jane Doe was born, but we do know that she lived in the northern part of the country, in what was then New England, in a village called Salem. The Salem witch trials remain one of the most famous witch hunts in history. From February 1692 to May 1693, a series of court trials took place in the New England town of Salem, where people were accused of practicing witchcraft. 14 women and 5 men were executed. According to this theory, Jane Doe was the reason those trials began. The small piece of cloth found with her contained the date of the ritual, 1693. That is the moment Austen realizes what they are truly dealing with, possibly one of the most powerful witches of all time. But then, how was the Inquisition able to perform the ritual if Jane Doe, even while completely motionless and without her tongue, was still able to control the dead? The answer lies in the clues left behind by the exorcists of that era: the thorn apple flower and the note wrapped around the tooth. The witch had been kept under the influence of thornapple the entire time. They cut into her flesh, something the church itself forbade. Those hundreds of cuts found on her internal organs point to exactly that. Later, when they realized they had tried every known method of execution and nothing had worked, they performed a pagan sealing ritual instead. The ancient runes carved beneath the witch's skin are the proof. It is highly unlikely that the church was responsible for those markings. They were most likely carved by someone who practiced witchcraft. After that, she was buried deep underground, far enough that no one would ever find her. Unfortunately, even that was not enough. By the way, I already have a separate in-depth breakdown of this movie on my channel. In that video, I go over some interesting theories, the runes, and the possible meaning behind the ritual. If you're interested in the topic, you'll find the link in the description. Even so, some of the symbols and details remain a mystery to this day. So if any of you know how to read these runes or have any additional information about the ritual, be sure to leave a comment below. It would be great to put all the pieces together. Now let's move on to the next entry on the list. The Devourer of Children's Souls. A demon who, according to the film's mythology, was worshipped by ancient Scandinavian tribes living in what is now Norway, where children were offered to him as sacrifices. His name is Bughul. He first appeared in Sinister as the story's main antagonist. Bughul abducts children after their families have been murdered. Every killing follows a ritual pattern. No 2 murders are ever the same, and each one is marked by exceptional brutality. The demon turns murder into a form of art. In reality, no religion has ever recognized a being with this name. Bughul is entirely a creation of Hollywood filmmakers. He also has several distinctive physical features. First, the demon has no visible eyes, he also has no mouth, and his head is covered with long black hair. On top of that, Bughul never kills anyone himself. The murders are always carried out by children. They kill every member of their own family and then leave to serve the demon. After that, the task of these little dark souls becomes recruiting new servants for Bughul. The dead children would make contact with living children, those who were destined to kill their own families, and convince them that it was something they had to do. Bughul himself remained hidden in the shadows until the very end. Perhaps he feared frightening his future victims. Even in ancient times, he never killed anyone with his own hands. People feared him so deeply that they willingly brought their own children to him as offerings. In the modern world, however, Bughul has long been forgotten. That forced him to adapt and find new ways to hunt for souls. There is another important detail. Bughul exists in his own realm and can only enter our world through images of himself, drawings, photographs, films, or through his summoning symbol, the totem, and even through memories. The demon is capable of manipulating people's minds and creating terrifying illusions. Personally, I consider Bughul to be the weakest demon on this list, although it is entirely possible that we simply know too little about his past and have yet to see the full extent of his true power. But now it is time to move on to the most mysterious demon on this list. And yes, I mean Toby. No, not that Toby from the Naruto anime. I am talking about the one from the Paranormal Activity series. I will say this right away. The first movie genuinely impressed me. After that, the sense of realism and immersion gradually faded. But my curiosity about who Toby really was kept me watching every sequel. Sometimes the films revealed small pieces of information about him, while other entries ignored his story almost completely and focused instead on the two sisters, Katie and Christy. Even so, I managed to uncover a few details about the demon. This entity exists alongside humanity in a parallel realm. It is worshipped by a witches' coven that uses the demon for its own purposes, usually about once every 100 years, although sometimes sooner. The Supreme Witch makes a pact with the demon. The members of the coven seek supernatural gifts in return, such as the ability to see the future, a long life, and great wealth. In exchange, Toby is promised the first son born into the family's bloodline. The agreement passes from one generation to the next until the demon finally receives what it was promised. The child is meant to become a vessel, allowing the demon to obtain a physical body and remain in our world for a long time. Adults cannot see Toby, but children can. They can talk to him, see him, and even play with him, which makes the whole idea even more disturbing. In one of the films, a father asks his daughter what her imaginary friend Toby looks like, and the little girl replies that he is a very tall old man with long white hair and a long white beard. He is dressed in tattered white robes.
Tell me, is he old like grandma or young like you?
Old like grandma.
Tall or fat?
He's tall, really tall.
His second form is far more demonic, sometimes appearing as nothing more than vapor or an ethereal mist. Because of that, a popular theory has appeared online suggesting that Toby is actually a jinn, more specifically, a type of jinn known as a marid. There are a lot of similarities. First of all, marids are said to appear either as an ethereal, smoke-like being, or as an elderly man dressed in white with a long white beard. Witches and apostates are believed to call upon them, asking for power and help in achieving their goals. According to legend, the marids were cursed and cast out of paradise. Later, however, they outwitted the element of earth, escaped the world of shadows, and returned to the realm of light. They are also believed to influence the fertility of the land. In the films, we're told that the symbol appearing throughout almost every installment, a circle inside a triangle, represents fertility, while the triangle's three corners symbolize three stages: manifestation, presence, and death. The symbol itself is incredibly ancient and was first known as the Triangle of Solomon. According to legend, King Solomon used this symbol to command and control various evil spirits. That also supports another theory I mentioned earlier, that the witches are using the demon for their own purposes, which would mean the cult controls Toby through Solomon's triangle. Personally, I think Toby is an incredibly powerful entity. Every attempt to banish him and every effort by priests to seal him away has failed completely. He is capable of seeing the future and even creating portals, and he was able to do all of that without even having a physical body. Personally, I really like the theory that Toby is one of the evil married jinn, the connection to Solomon, the form he takes when appearing to children, and the symbolism of fertility. There are just too many coincidences, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Next on our list is the lipstick-faced demon, the entity that lives in the astral and serves as one of the main antagonists of Insidious. Judging by the fact that the demon returned in the 5th film, it is safe to assume that the first movie revealed only a fraction of its true abilities. In fact, we still do not know its real history or even its true name. No one has ever managed to defeat the lipstick-faced demon. Its appearance is always accompanied by a distinctive crackling sound. The demon lives in one of the darkest corners of the astral. Its lair is filled with theatrical props, masks, marionettes, and countless other stage decorations, making the entire place resemble an abandoned theater. Many believe that in its former life, the demon was once a human who worked as a puppeteer. Its appearance resembles that of a satyr. It has hooves instead of feet, a tail, and a tongue split like a snake's. It enjoys wearing jewelry, including earrings and removable golden claws decorated with precious stones, which it likes to sharpen while listening to the song Tiptoe Through the Tulips in the astral. The demon possesses superhuman strength, telekinesis, teleportation, and the ability to move across walls. It can also use many of its powers in the real world, although with certain limitations. In the astral, the demon keeps an entire collection of human souls under its control. Why it collects souls and why it lives behind the red door are questions that will most likely be answered only after the events of the 5th film. But there are two particularly interesting details. First, the demon has an ally, a man with black hair who is capable of harming people outside the astral. He repeatedly attacks Renee and guards the entrance to the lipstick-faced demon's lair. Interestingly, his appearance resembles Bughul from Sinister. The second detail is the demon's eye color. Once again, its eyes are yellow, just like Pennywise, Valak, and Malphas. According to demonology, yellow-eyed demons are considered the princes of hell. They stand near the top of the infernal hierarchy, surpassed only by white-eyed demons, who occupy the very highest rank. It is believed that these elite demons were created by Lucifer himself, while all the others came into existence later, through the corruption of human souls. That is probably why filmmakers so often choose yellow eyes for their most powerful demonic characters. That is simply my own theory. Even so, I would rank the lipstick-faced demon among the strongest entities on this list. It is still alive, and within the astral, it is considered virtually unbeatable. The next antagonist has been defeated several times, but it never really matters because he is immortal. Of course, I am talking about Frederick Charles Krueger. I will be honest with you, I have never watched A Nightmare on Elm Street. I know there are sequels, reboots, and more films featuring Freddy, even though he is one of the most famous and recognizable horror icons in the world, appearing in video games, countless books, comics, toys, theme park attractions, songs, and even documentaries. I somehow never got into the franchise. After watching Alien and The Thing, I just could not bring myself to watch A Nightmare on Elm Street. I think you get the idea. So let us move on to his story. Freddy was born in a psychiatric hospital. His mother was assaulted by hundreds of violent psychiatric patients, including murderers and serial killers. 9 months later, she gave birth to a baby boy, but her mental condition made her incapable of raising him. That is how Freddy ended up in an orphanage. Later, he was adopted by the Underwood family. His adoptive father was a cruel man who constantly abused and beat him. When Freddy turned 18, he killed his adoptive father. He was careful enough to hide every piece of evidence, so no one could prove that he was responsible. After that, Freddy lives what appears to be an ordinary life. He gets married, has a daughter, and takes a job at a boiler room. Around the same time, children begin disappearing throughout the town. Freddy's wife eventually discovers that her husband is responsible for the murders, so he kills her as well. In the end, all the evidence surrounding the disappearances and murders points directly to him. Freddy is arrested and loses custody of his daughter. However, because of procedural mistakes made during his arrest, the court dismisses the case. All charges are dropped and he walks free. Naturally, the families of the murdered children refuse to accept that outcome. They decide to take justice into their own hands. They trap Freddy inside the boiler room where he works, lock the doors, and set the building on fire with Molotov cocktails. As he burns alive, 3 dream demons appear before him. They offer him a bargain. He will become immortal and all-powerful within the dream world, but in return, his soul will belong to the 3 demons. After accepting the deal, Frederick Charles Krueger becomes virtually unstoppable in the dream world. There, he is omnipotent. He can kill people in their sleep, mutilate them in any way he chooses, and at first he does it for revenge. Later, it becomes something he genuinely enjoys. Freddy can also cross over into the real world, but once he does, he loses all of his supernatural abilities. Even so, he has several important weaknesses. The first is that if a victim stops fearing him inside a dream and gains control over their own subconscious, Freddy immediately loses his power over them. The second weakness is a drug called Hypnosil. Anyone who takes this medication no longer dreams, which means they can no longer encounter Freddy Krueger. In truth, Freddy Krueger terrified movie audiences for many years, but because his power exists almost entirely within dreams, I do not think he deserves a place in the top 3. The demon trapped inside the mirrors, however, could very well have become the strongest of them all if it had ever managed to escape its prison. Unfortunately, Mirrors tells us almost nothing about this demon. We never learn its name or its history. What we do know is that it entered our world by possessing the body of a 12-year-old girl named Anna Esseka. After taking over the girl's body, the demon gained complete control of her. The entity was so powerful that a single priest was unable to perform an exorcism successfully. As a result, the girl was committed to a psychiatric hospital and diagnosed with schizophrenia. Conventional treatment did nothing to help Anna. Medication proved completely useless. But her attending doctor practiced an alternative form of therapy. Using mirrors, he made patients spend days inside a room completely surrounded by them. In demonology, there is a method of banishing a demon through its reflection. If the true name of the evil entity is unknown, a mirror can be used instead. When the demon sees its own reflection, it becomes trapped within the mirror world. You may have seen a similar ritual in the movie Constantine. That is exactly how the entity became trapped in the mirror world. But even while sealed away, the demon remained incredibly powerful. Its only goal was to find Anna Esseka because it shared a unique bond with her. She was the only person who could look into a mirror and allow the demon to possess her once again. No one else was suitable for the ritual, so the demon manipulated people in every possible way, forcing them to find Anna and bring her back. The demon could kill with nothing more than a reflection. Hiding from it was almost impossible because in the modern world, there is always something that reflects an image. Even something as simple as a door handle or any reflective surface could become a weapon. The souls of everyone the demon killed were taken into the mirror world. At the same time, the demon itself could not be destroyed. Trying to smash the mirrors or burn them was completely pointless. Only Anna Esseka had the power to free the demon and give it a physical body. But when that finally happened, and it seemed as though the entity had been destroyed, the truth turned out to be very different. The demon had cleverly deceived Ben. In reality, Ben himself became trapped inside the mirror world, which means Ben was dead, and his soul had fallen into the demon's hands. An incredibly powerful and terrifying entity, and one that absolutely deserves a place among the top 5 strongest supernatural beings in horror cinema. Another ancient demon on our list is Jeepers Creepers. His behavior, hunting cycle, and backstory are remarkably similar to Pennywise from IT. This entity also existed long before humanity. Unfortunately, the films reveal very little about his past, but the comics provide much more information. The Creeper is older than mankind itself and has wandered the world since ancient times. His image appears throughout countless human cultures and mythologies in the form of various gods and demonic beings. Among the Aztecs, he was known as Quetzalcoatl, and the tribes offered human sacrifices in his honor. In the ancient city of Teotihuacan, Quetzal was another name used for the Creeper. He did not arrive on Earth alone. He has a twin brother named Xlota. The two of them came to Earth on a falling star from the planet Venus. The Aztecs feared the Creeper and offered him sacrifices every 23 years. The most beautiful young women and the tribe's greatest hunters. The Cherokee believed he was a life form that had existed long before humanity itself. They called him Octana. They feared and respected this evil spirit so deeply that they willingly offered themselves as sacrifices rather than oppose him. In Mesopotamian mythology, the Creeper was known as Nemesis and was depicted alongside his twin brother, reinforcing the idea that there are actually two of these demons on Earth. Both of them, according to the story, arrived from the planet Venus. There are plenty of theories about that across internet forums, but we will come back to them at the end. The Creeper is a humanoid creature with many bat-like characteristics. It possesses large, membranous wings similar to those of a bat. Its life cycle is highly unusual. Every 23 years, it awakens from hibernation. During the 23rd spring, it hunts for 23 consecutive days. Its purpose is to feed on human organs in order to prolong its own existence. The creature also possesses superhuman strength and abilities, along with rapid regeneration and complete immortality. The Creeper also possesses an extraordinarily keen sense of smell, allowing him to detect a person's physical condition. The comics also reveal that he can absorb human memories by consuming their organs. That is one of the reasons he eventually began wearing clothes, making it easier to blend in without attracting attention. Because of this, he knows how to drive, and he can even speak multiple languages. The comics also explain that he has no control over his own life cycle. In ancient times, people worshipped him, but in the modern world he tries to hide before returning to hibernation. That is why he has a lair beneath an abandoned church. Before going back to sleep, he tries to kill everyone who has seen him, so that no witnesses are left behind. He is certainly one of the strongest demons on this list. However, according to theories based on the newer comics, many fans believe he is actually an alien. They suggest that he lived on Venus back when the planet still supported life, before a runaway greenhouse effect transformed it into the world we know today. According to that theory, two beings from this ancient species managed to escape the dying planet and eventually arrived on Earth. According to this theory, the second Creeper mentioned in Aztec and Sumerian legends is not the original creature's twin brother at all, but simply another member of the same species. It is believed that this second creature was captured in ancient Egypt and mummified while it was in hibernation. Since it was immortal, however, its body could not be destroyed. Instead, it was buried deep beneath the ground, and a pyramid was built over the site to keep it sealed away. In 2018, Universal Studios wanted to acquire the rights to Jeepers Creepers for its Dark Universe franchise. Unfortunately, the deal ultimately fell through. Personally, I would have loved to see a crossover on the big screen. The Creeper would have been a perfect addition to that universe. At one point, I even wanted to make a full video exploring the Creeper's history based on the comics. If that is something you would like to see, let me know in the comments. One of the most controversial antagonists on this list is the Babadook. You will soon understand why. A humanoid figure dressed in a black coat and top hat, with a pale face and sharply defined features, the Babadook relentlessly stalks anyone who becomes aware of its existence and mercilessly torments its victims. No one knows for certain whether it is a demon, a ghost, or, as I personally believe, nothing more than a product of Amelia's imagination. According to this interpretation, the character first appeared in the 12th century. In a wealthy family, there lived a cheerful, outgoing, and gifted young boy. He was exceptionally talented. He wrote poetry, loved to draw, and was especially skilled at performing magic tricks. The people around him were amazed by his incredible performances, while his friends secretly envied him and called him a sorcerer. He never revealed the secrets behind his illusions. More than anything else, however, he craved attention. He feared that one day people would stop admiring him and no longer respect him. Over time, that fear turned the young man into someone bitter and withdrawn. So he came up with a new prank. He would run up to someone's door, knock exactly 3 times, and the moment it opened, he would run away laughing. The prank became so notorious that everyone in the area knew about it. In fact, it was because of those famous 3 knocks that the boy earned the nickname Babadook. His parents tried everything they could to stop him, but nothing worked. Eventually, his father began beating him. The Babadook stopped speaking altogether. But 3 days later, he finally broke his silence and said, "Soon I will show you what real fun is." After that, children from neighboring families began dying. According to the story, they all died because of the Babadook's games. Everyone who played with him died under mysterious circumstances. The killings continued. Then one day, he performed a trick for his own mother, and she died as well. When his father found his wife's body, he flew into a rage. He beat his son and finally wrapped his hands around the boy's neck, trying to strangle him. But even as he was being choked, the Babadook was still able to speak. "I only wanted to play a little." Those were his last words. The Babadook's voice sounded like a fork scraping across a plate. His body was carried to a ravine and thrown into the depths below. The boy came from a very large family with 11 children. Exactly 1 year after his death, someone knocked on the family's front door 3 times. When the father opened it, he found a book lying on the doorstep. He threw it away, but the next day, the exact same thing happened. Then it happened again and again. This continued for an entire week. Eventually, the father decided to wait by the door, determined to catch whoever he believed was tormenting him. The moment the 3 knocks came, he flung the door open without hesitation. There was no one there, only that same book. In the end, the father lost his mind and murdered almost his entire family. The eldest daughter survived for a short time before she died. Before passing away, she managed to tell others about the horrifying massacre. She said it was the Babadook who had returned. Only now he was no longer a small boy and no longer looked like his former self. But she recognized the monster's raspy voice as it whispered a single word over and over again: Babadook. The film uses the same story elements, the mysterious book, and the 3 knocks at the door. Even so, I personally believe that Amelia simply lost her mind, and that the Babadook in the film is nothing more than a manifestation of her imagination. There is another clue that supports this theory. The book is illustrated with charcoal drawings, and at one point the camera clearly shows Amelia's hands covered in black charcoal dust. I believe she was the one who created the book herself. In any case, the Babadook is a fascinating entity, but even he never terrified me as much as the KeyFace demon from Insidious, the last key. His appearance alone was enough to send chills down my spine. So let us move on to that demon next, Insidious. The last key was genuinely terrifying, and it also revealed a great deal of new information. First of all, we learned that all 3 demons, the lipstick face demon, the man who cannot breathe, and KeyFace, were once human beings. Each of them has their own red door in the astral. Before becoming a demon, KeyFace was a prison warden and a murderer. He abducted nurses, kept them imprisoned, tormented them for his own amusement, and eventually killed them. The film also reveals that it was Elise who unknowingly opened the door and set KeyFace free. Even while trapped behind his own red door, he was able to manipulate people. He is exceptionally cunning and always wants to remain in complete control, even within the astral. He rules over his own prison, where every captured soul is locked inside its own individual cell. Using the keys that replace his fingers, he can drag people into the astral, even while they are asleep. He is also capable of killing people in the real world. But the most interesting part is the ending of the film. Actually, there are two different endings, but that is not what I want to focus on. Instead, I want to talk about one very important moment. After KeyFace is finally driven away, Elise opens a red door and sees Dalton in the attic of his house. But when she leaves, she unknowingly leaves the door open. And we already know from the first Insidious that it is during that very night that the lipstick-faced demon manages to capture Dalton's astral body. In other words, it all happens because of Elise. There are two different versions of the ending. The theatrical version shows that after being struck with the lantern, the demon is thrown back into the darkness and never returns. But in the alternate ending, everything plays out differently. Elise actually kills him. When KeyFace dies, his body shatters into countless keys, and every soul imprisoned inside his astral prison is finally set free. That detail is extremely important because it tells us that two of the astral's three major demons are now gone: the man who cannot breathe and KeyFace. Only the lipstick-faced demon remains. Of course, the fifth film could change everything. Either way, KeyFace is unquestionably one of the most powerful, and certainly one of the most disturbing, demons in the entire franchise. I really enjoy the Insidious movies. They have an interesting mythology, great plot twists, and I am genuinely looking forward to the next installment. But I also could not leave out another ancient demon. This one is known from Stephen King's works and from the 2020 series The Outsider. His name is El Cuco. According to the story, this entity exists alongside humanity in a parallel realm. It appears in countless religions, myths, and legends from around the world. It feeds not only on the flesh of humans and animals, but also on fear and suffering. One of its most terrifying abilities is its power to copy a person perfectly, right down to their DNA. That makes every investigation follow the wrong trail. El Cuco is an expert at framing completely innocent people. However, to do that, it needs direct contact with its victim, or at least a single drop of blood. The transformation is a slow process, and the copied body is only temporary. It gradually decays and dies, forcing the creature to perform the ritual over and over again. At times, El Cuco is so weak that it has to rely on human helpers. By scratching the back of a person's neck, it is able to enter their mind, plant its own thoughts, and manipulate them into carrying out its orders. El Cuco is remarkably intelligent, but it is still not human, and its behavior often gives it away. The series also makes it clear that the creature itself does not know where it came from, when it first appeared, or whether others like it even exist. From its own words, it becomes obvious that El Cuco is simply trying to survive. It is eternally hungry, and it does not enjoy living this way. Many people believe that the boogeyman and El Cuco are the same creature, but they are not. They are entirely different entities. In reality, El Cuco is a relatively weak demon. It can be harmed physically. It fears fire, it fears dogs, and it is ultimately a prisoner of its own endless hunger. Folklore is filled with creatures similar to El Cuco, and they do not always kill. If a child is truly happy and carries no fear, pain, or grief, El Cuco cannot feed on them or truly harm them. At most, it can leave scratches on their arms or legs, but nothing more. One of the weakest entities on this list. But I simply could not leave him out because I really enjoyed The Outsider. If you have not seen it, I definitely recommend it. It is an excellent detective series that never drags, and it is only one season long. Well, I think we have now covered all of the demons. I probably missed a few. I definitely did. But now it is time to rank the 5 strongest. As always, I want to say this right away. This ranking is highly debatable, and it is entirely my personal opinion. In 5th place, I am putting Pennywise from IT. After all, this entity survived for more than 1,000,000 years, could manipulate people, and was capable of taking virtually any form. But the fact that the Losers Club ultimately managed to defeat it automatically keeps Pennywise out of my top 3. In 4th place, I am putting Toby from Paranormal Activity. Not a single priest was ever able to stop him. Throughout the entire series, he always comes out on top, and everyone who stands against his will ends up dead. 3rd place goes to the demon trapped inside the mirrors. Even while sealed away and imprisoned within the mirror world, it still managed to defeat its enemies. It is an incredibly intelligent, cunning, and dangerous entity. In second place, I have to put Jeepers Creepers. How do you defeat a creature that fears neither prayer nor religion? A being that has accumulated knowledge for centuries and almost always emerges victorious. The only reason I did not give him first place is because in today's world of cameras and the internet, he would have a much harder time staying hidden. And since he cannot control his own life cycle, once he falls into hibernation, he becomes an easy target. My number one pick is Valak from The Conjuring. He is the supreme demon, commanding an entire army beneath him. If Lorraine had not been a gifted medium and had not learned his true name, everything could have ended very differently. After all, not everyone has access to the blood of Christ capable of sending such a demon back to hell. As for the demons from the astral, I decided to leave them out of the ranking because we still know too little about them. They were all once human, making them more like half demons than true primordial entities. That said, the lipstick-faced demon could easily change this ranking in the future. Now I want to hear your top 5. Let me know in the comments which entities you think deserve the highest spots and where you believe I got the ranking wrong.